My name is Joseph Nolan, and I'm delighted to have been welcomed here to Brisbane by the Queensland Symphony Orchestra for their Enigma concerts, which of course feature the Poulenc organ concerto, of which I will be the soloist. I'm so happy to be here, particularly in these very difficult times. One of the great joys of travelling as an organist, of course, is coming to these wonderful halls, wonderful organs that are housed in them, and working, of course, with wonderful orchestras and conductors. Collaboration is actually something organists don't often get to do. Often we're seen as these sort of mad, hunched over figures that work, late into the night in churches or cathedrals. And whilst to an extent that is true, one of the great benefits of perhaps reaching a certain level in one's career is being able to work with really fantastic musicians in collaborative repertoire such as concertos. This hall houses a wonderful Kleist organ. They're based in Bonn, Kleist, of course, where Beethoven was born, a very famous musical city. And I've had the privilege of being taken round their organ factory on a private tour. It's quite breathtaking, the work that Kleist do. Poulenc originally conceived this concerto as a commission in 1936. However, it was not performed until 1938. A great deal happened in Poulenc's life in the intervening time. He is a rather paradoxical figure because he could be seen as a neo-Baroque composer, he could be seen as an impressionist, something he eschewed as part of the Six, a group of composers in Paris who were actually rather against the impressionism that was the de rigueur at the time. And he's also a romantic composer. You never quite know where he is. He definitely in an interview thought this was one of his serious works. He was often criticised, Poulenc, for being too light. There is a great deal of lightness of touch in this piece, but there's tragedy not far away either. And perhaps one of the best aspects of this work is that if this were to be a portrait, it would be hanging in the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. There is so much colour, lightness, palette, and I think really it become anything you want it to be in your head. Unfortunately, my playing it alone, and I'm going to show you a few examples from the concerto, doesn't quite work, and that's why I urge you to come along to hear the concert. So if we take the very, very opening, you heard me refer to the neo-Baroque, so it's a revival of the old. You'll hear this opening. Quite tangy harmonies, I'm sure you'd agree. But if you listen to this work by Bach, his Fantasia in G minor BWV 542, a very famous organ work, which starts off in a very rhetorical style, you'll hear some startling similarities. So you can hear how Poulenc goes back to the original work of Bach. Even the second immediate subject doesn't sound dissimilar from what Bach has written in his Fantasia. So here's the Poulenc first in the second subject. And here is the Bach second subject. And so on. So the old and the new are not so far removed from each other. The concerto is really built into 7 very disparate sections. Rather similar perhaps to Buxtehude's organ works, which are built in a very similar style on rhetoric. slow, fast, more emotional, maybe a bit cool, detached. And that's really what Poulenc does throughout this concerto extremely well. You could say there was almost like a schizophrenic element to his personality. You never quite knew whether he was street urchin or monk. And it's really the organ concerto at around that time in 1936 to 1938 that defined where he was going with his composition, because that devout Catholicism really then kicked in at the loss of his composer friend. The end of the concerto, again, ends with this reference to the Bach Fantasia 542. And if you want to hear what the orchestra does on that final chord, you'll have to come along to a performance.